Washington Journal continues.
Welcome back. We're joined now by MICHAELAH Montgomery. She's the Georgia coordinator for Fulton County for America First Works. She's also the founder of Conserve the Culture. MICHAELAH, welcome to the program.
Hello, hello. Thank you guys for having me.
You introduced former President Trump at his recent rally in Atlanta. How did that come about? How did you meet him?
So I actually met him back in April at the Chick-fil-A that, was a viral moment now. And I've been in contact with the team ever since then. President Trump actually invited me and all the HBCU students to have a private dinner with him at Mar-a-Lago. And, I saw him when he went to Detroit for the rallies. Again, I'm a member of Blexit, so I was there for the Turning Point, People's Convention, things like that. And so when I heard he was coming to Atlanta, I just reached out to the team and I said, what are the odds that I can speak on Saturday? And they said yes. And I made that request on a Wednesday night. And nobody, told me what to say. Nobody said, make sure you do this. Nobody made any edits to my speech. They literally let me write it out. I submitted and said, this is what I'd like to say. They said, all right, try to keep it under 5 minutes. That's probably the only rule that I broke, but I don't think anybody was upset about it.
You're very active in politics, obviously. Can you tell us how you got involved and why?
Yes, so I actually moved to Atlanta, Georgia from Las Vegas, Nevada. And just knowing, or not knowing, but observing the starking differences in the quality of education that I saw some of the students receiving, looking at development, specifically urban development, infrastructure, and how people are complaining about the roads. And even now, I've been here 10 years and people are still complaining about the same roads. I just thought, wow, there must be a way to do something about this other than complaining about it. And my senior year of high school is actually when I decided to change my major from pre-law to political science, because I knew then that I could really make change being in government. Before, I thought that I could make change defending, the defenseless. But I'm like, wow, if I create laws that could help them before they ever, need to be in a courtroom, I think that would be better. And I was actually picked up by Miss Vivian Childs and Janelle King. Way back in 2017, Janelle King was working with the GAGOP at the time, let me know that internships were available. I decided to go ahead and take one up. I learned a lot. I met some amazing people, and I've just been doing the work ever since then.
So you're the organizer in Fulton County, Georgia for America First Works.
Yes.
Tell us what that is and the affiliation with the Trump campaign.
So as you know, the Trump campaign has shouted out America First Works, America First Policy Institute, the entire America First family tree. We're a big, I guess, I wouldn't say think tank, but a lot of the outsourcing in regards to the engagement, the outreach, the mobilization of voters and volunteers would all come through America First. We also do a lot of events and things like that. So my role specifically would be to throw events, to encourage people to not just pay attention to the election, but get involved with the campaign, to encourage their friends to vote, to come up with a voting plan on election day or during early voting, all of those things. So at America First Works specifically, I am in charge of volunteer recruitment, coordination, and mobilization.
And how is it funded?
It's a PAC, so I imagine that the money comes from donors who support any of our pillars, whether that be for education, whether that be gun rights, whether that be pro-life enthusiasts. It would come from donors.
And why do you personally support former President Trump?
I personally support President Trump due to my personal beliefs. So as a former foster child, I really love family. And I don't think that just because things didn't work out with my birth parents, that meant that I didn't deserve to be here. So that turned me kind of into a pro-lifer. I'm not the type to demonize people for the decisions that they decide to make. But me personally, if I'm going to vote for my personal views, I'm going to align myself with a pro-life candidate. Additionally, I am a mother now myself, so I do pay a lot of attention to the education that my child is receiving. And again, when I moved out here, I noticed the differences between the standards of education in Nevada and the standards of education out here in Atlanta, Georgia. And I didn't like how I came here and I felt like not necessarily that I was smarter than everybody else, but I just felt like I was equipped with a better education than a lot of other people. And I don't know whether that be the allocation of resources. I don't know if it had something to do with property taxes. I don't know if maybe I just got lucky and had amazing teachers all throughout my life. But as a mother now, I think it's very important that parents have a say-so in their child's education and that parents can remain hands-on. For instance, I don't believe that there's 53 genders, and I refuse to allow my child to sit in a classroom in which they're going to tell her that that is what is true, and she will be tested on said thing and possibly failed if I tell her that there's only 2 genders and I don't care what the teacher says. Lastly, as a single mother, as a woman who, I think I'm gorgeous. So just being able to protect myself, having my Second Amendment rights protected regardless. I do not want to live in a world in which your personal firearms are expected to be surrendered, because in a world like that, the only people who have guns are criminals and law enforcement. So if someone were to break into my home, which actually has happened to me recently, I wouldn't be able to protect myself. And whoever was breaking into my home would also know that. And the person breaking into my home would probably be equipped with a weapon, because just like drugs, if people want something that's illegal, they're going to get it. And so those are my 3 main reasons. Additionally, I have a brother that was formerly incarcerated, so he is now a returning citizen. And I think it's unfair that migrants can commit a crime by illegally migrating over here, and they get rewarded with the same resources that my brother would be turned down for. So my brother cannot get food stamps. My brother cannot apply for a luxury apartment. My brother cannot just go out for a corporate job without knowing somebody who knows somebody. Yet a migrant can come over here illegally and be awarded food stamps, be awarded housing assistance, be granted the opportunity to pursue a higher education, all of these things. Yet my brother, who was born here, bred here, when he worked, paid taxes here, he can't get those things, but a migrant can. So when I look specifically at policy and my personal experience, everything that I would want aligns with what I see on the Trump side.
All right. And if you'd like to join our conversation with MICHAELAH Montgomery, you can do so. Our lines are Republicans, 202-748-8001, Democrats, 202-748-8000, and Independents, 202-748-8002. And Kayla, you founded a group called Conserve the Culture. What is that about?
So Conserve the Culture is mainly a mobilization group. So almost a staffing company. So I started out as a door-to-door canvasser, actually. And when doing those projects, the field director would usually be like, do you have any friends that can join you? Can you bring some more people with you tomorrow? And me being a poli-sci major at an HBCU, all I would have to do is go to class and tell people, hey, I'm doing this work for this election. They're going to pay us. Do any of you want to come? And of course, everybody would want to come with me. So I would get everybody to my house. We would wait for the van, the bus, the Uber, whatever, to come pick us up. We would go to the neighborhoods. We would canvass those neighborhoods. We would go right back to my house, which was on campus. So everybody would go to their respective dorms afterwards. So that was something. I started getting calls darn near every other week. And so I was like, this is very interesting. And eventually I ended up working for this man named Edward Muldrow. And after mobilizing the team, getting them out there, getting them home, I'm going to pick up the money so that I can compensate the workers. And he gave me a nice little bit on top of what I was supposed to be, what was owed. And I was like, what's this? And he basically let me know, if you recruit, train, mobilize, transport, and pay these people, you are a manager. And it's about time you start carrying yourself as such. And so Conserve the Culture was created from there. And now it's primarily not just jobs, but of course I make an effort to make sure they have the opportunity to meet whatever candidate it is that they are working for. I bring them to different events, town halls, so that they can see their candidate debate or hear their candidate speak on the issues that are important to them. I have really done my best in exposing them to the different sides of politics. So while I may support Trump, I don't expect them all to support Trump, because my journey that got me here might be different from theirs. So all I can do is give them the same opportunities that were granted to me, and that's let me get you in the room. Let me allow you to participate in these conversations, and let me let you know that, you do have access to your city councilman, to your commissioner, to your mayor, to your governor, things like that. You do have a right to speak to them. You do have a voice in regards to what your concerns are. So I bring my kids everywhere. They haven't only met President Trump. They've met presidential candidate or hopeful candidate Robert F. Kennedy as well. And if Joe Biden actually cared about the community, they would have met him too, but he hasn't made himself accessible. So with that being said, I just do my best to create a new generation of informed voters. Yes, Kayla rocks this way, and I'm gonna bring y'all to wherever I'm at so you guys can see why. But if you still don't rock with it, here's what's going on over here, and here's what's going on over there. Now let's have conversations about what you learned in this room and how it differs from what was said in that room. This, I think, is how we're gonna solve the issue of voter apathy. And low level, how we have high levels of voter registration and low levels of voter turnout.
So, Kayla, the Atlanta rally that we were talking about, where you introduced former President Trump, a few days before that, he spoke to the National Association of Black Journalists, and he talked about Vice President Harris's racial identity, that she had become black. A lot of critics said that that hurt him with black voters. What was your reaction?
I don't know why it would hurt him with black voters, because it seems like black voters are offended by everything except the conditions in which their reality is set. So while we might be offended that a rich white man is questioning the nationality of a quote-unquote black woman, that black woman does not claim to be black outside of campaign season. So we saw her be black as she was vying to be VP. The hot sauce on the pork chops, the marching with the band, all of a sudden she's paying attention to her AKA sorority sisters. But then once sworn in office, you didn't see the acknowledgement of her sorority or her HBCU. She didn't wear pink, she didn't wear green, she didn't wear anything HU. She also did not acknowledge the black community while in office. We saw bills signed for Asians. We saw bills passed for migrants, which primarily affect the Hispanic community. We saw bills passed for literally everyone but black people. So for her, additionally, last thing, after she took that oath of office, she went on record to say that she was the first South Asian vice president. At no point in time did she promote her blackness. At no point in time does she acknowledge her blackness. At no point in time does she market herself as a black woman. And that was when she was attorney general. That's back when she was DA. That's all the way until she was senator. And of course, as vice president. So the fact that, again, she's using this black card during the election season just so black people will turn out to vote for her. And then she will, if she were to win, she would be in office and then fail those same black people who did everything in their power to get her in. I think that's disgusting. I think that's unfair. And I think that that's why I personally reached out to the Trump campaign and asked if I could speak, because I'm like, you guys might be offended when he says it, but what are you going to do when I say it? Because at the end of the day, I am a black woman. I've lived a black life, and therefore I pay attention to politics. So I was actually excited for her when she ran for president the first time. Just the fact that she was in the race, I was like, okay, HBCUs, do your thing. But she never acknowledged said HBCUs. In the first 100 days of the administration, they cut funding to HBCUs. She did nothing to support the very people that she's now leaning on to win this election. And I wish that those same people would understand that if they were to support her in this election and she does win, we will see nothing but a repeat of the last administration, in which black people, the same people that everybody touts when it's time to get elected, will also be the ones that are the first to be forgotten about once they're sworn in.
MICHAELAH Montgomery, also at that Atlanta rally and at a news conference the week before, former President Trump attacked Georgia's popular governor, Brian Kemp. I want to show you a segment of that and then have you respond to it.
He's the most disloyal guy I think I've ever seen. But think of the wife. We can never repay you for what you've done, sir. We could have never won. And now she said 2 weeks ago that I will not endorse him because he hasn't earned my endorsement. I haven't earned her endorsement. I have nothing to do with her. Somewhere he went bad. And you know what? Your numbers in Georgia are very average. Your crime numbers, your economic numbers, all of your numbers, you're very average. You can do a lot better, and you'll do a lot better with a better governor. You can do a lot better, just so you understand. But I don't want her endorsement. I don't want his endorsement. I just want them to do their job for Georgia. And you know what? He's the governor. He ought to support his Republican Party, because if he doesn't have his Republican Party, I could tell you where he came from, and it wasn't good.
MICHAELAH, your response to that?
Well, I feel like that Trump and Kemp had a personal relationship, a personal friendship. And the media, the current, I guess, narrative is that Trump called Kemp and asked Kemp to find 11,000 votes. It wasn't until this rally that I understood that that's not how the call went. The call was actually, can you make the call to start an investigation to see if maybe some votes had been lost? So I could understand why Trump, who used his political prowess to help Kemp get into office, would be offended at the fact that Kemp would not help him at least investigate something that he felt had gone wrong in terms of being reelected. So I don't see anything wrong with Trump personally feeling attacked or feeling like Kemp was disloyal for not making the call to start an investigation. Additionally, he spoke in Atlanta, and as a resident of Atlanta, I can speak that our crime rates are rampant. I can speak to the fact that people don't want to go out anymore because they fear getting shot or they fear their cars getting broken into. I can tell you that kids no longer walk to the park or go hang out at the bowling alley or the skating rink or anything like that because crime legitimately is an issue here. Now, what more can our government do about it? I honestly would not know because that seems more like a mayoral issue. However, of course, Kemp can get up and shine a light onto the things that are happening in Atlanta and the surrounding cities in Georgia, of course, where they might be facing similar problems. So while I myself haven't received I haven't had a bad experience with Governor Kemp myself, I'm not going to act like I don't understand why Trump would get up and talk about his bad experience with Kemp. And additionally, the Republican Party is all about loyalty. So it kind of does make you want to say, yeah, it is pretty interesting that a Republican governor would not support the Republican Party's nomination for president. I can understand why Trump was upset that he did not get an endorsement from the two people he endorsed and helped get elected.
And this is a comment we got on X from Eric, who says, if you want to understand the problem Trump created for himself in Georgia, today on the radio, 9 out of 10 callers are women, and they're all mad at him for attacking Brian Kemp's wife. Let's go to calls now. Kayla, Charlie's in Jonesboro, Arkansas, Republican. Good morning.
Hey, I just wanted to ask you a little question about referendum voting. I think if we could vote on things ourselves, like this war in Ukraine or something, we could have some say in it. And at least this voting on John Smith or George, somebody, it doesn't matter who they are, they're not going to represent us. They'll get paid off. We have no say. This is an illusion of a democracy. And I also wanted to say, I think Donald Trump's a wonderful person, a really good man. I'd like to hear what you think about the Mar-a-Lago visit and how he is personally. I just, since we can't have any say in our own government, I think he is the answer.
All right. MICHAELAH Montgomery, any comment on referendum voting?
I agree. Much like President Trump always says, they're not trying to stop. They're not trying to do something to him. They're trying to do something to us, and he's just in the way. I think referendum voting is something that we should support because if the public had a say-so in funding Ukraine's war, I doubt that the funding would continue. If the public had a say-so in do we want little boys competing in little girl sports, I doubt that the Democratic Party would keep pushing that in the name of tolerance. I think that if we had a right to vote on really a lot of the government spending and a lot of the foreign relation things that are going on, if we even had the right to vote on the migrant issue, and should migrants have, a clear path to citizenship, or should they have to go through processes like we see in other countries? I think that that's important, and I think that that is something that should be talked about.
And Colin is calling us from Washington, D.C., Independent Line. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for taking my call, and thank you for C-SPAN. I lived in Georgia during the 2020 election, and, I didn't vote for Biden or Trump, but I do remember this same sort of rhetoric coming from Ms. Montgomery, trying to claim that, black voters were going to change sides to the Republican Party. And in 2020, I think the black percentage was like 6% for Trump. So I just find it funny that every 4 years, this same, kind of song and dance gets laundered by the Republican Party. And I think it's worth mentioning that, Ms. Montgomery, she was the former city director of Blexit, which is a far right, we're going to try and get, we're going to try and quote unquote free the plantation mentality is a literal quote of the organization of black voters. and it's founded by Candace Owens, who's a far-right loon. So I just think it's disappointing when C-SPAN, platforms people like MICHAELAH Montgomery or Sebastian Gorka, or constantly refers to the Washington Examiner or the Washington Times, which are quite literally far-right newspapers that are made up. I mean, the Washington Examiner, go look up who founds them. Next, you're going to be, referring to the Epoch Times. So,
all right, Colin, we'll get a response from MICHAELAH Montgomery. Go ahead, Michaela.
First of all, I'm a huge fan of Candace Owens, and I went to my first Blexit event here in Buckhead back in 2019. And the speeches that I heard, the visualizations that were presented to me, I was like, wow, this is great. And when it comes to getting off the Democratic plantation, that's a real thing, and I don't know why somebody would feel like I, myself, would be offended by that. If everybody thinks the same, has been fear-mongered into thinking the same way, living the same way, then yes, that's a plantation, because how in the world were so many slaves who outnumbered their slave masters continuing to be slaves? It happened because they were fearful of doing something different. So when we say that Democrats are on this Democratic plantation, specifically talking about black people, it's because yes, you guys are all blindly following a leader and you're scared to do something different. Additionally, to think that somebody like myself, who can clearly articulate their points, their opinions, their life experience that have led them to support certain candidates, it's very interesting that somebody would demean C-SPAN for having a guest like me on TV. There's plenty of people who think, act, and wish that a voice like mine had a bigger platform. So it's unfortunate that people like that feel like we should be silenced.
All right, let's talk to Ladley in Marietta, Georgia, Democrat. Good morning.
Yes, I did not know that you knew Candace Owens. Because she's pretty much been outcasted by the right because of her stances on Israel. But anyway, you will have a good job at Fox News at some point. I guarantee you that. And the things you point out on the Democrats, with their failures, you're absolutely right on some of the things. The Democrats fall short, but at least we try. The Republican policies are just the complete opposite, okay? The last thing I want to say, they're never going to let you in the club, okay? And you, like the movie Django, you are the character of Samuel L. Jackson. I don't know the exact, terminology, but, not Uncle Tom, but, Uncle Tommy, or, you were a complete sellout.
All right, and we'll go to Robert in...
Oh, I can't respond to that?
Oh, yes, you can.
Thank you very much. Because first of all, it sounded like that was a non-black person telling me that. So as a Democrat, that sounds pretty racial and pretty divisive. Next, it's very interesting that I, again, would be called names or be compared to fictional characters because of who I choose to support. Again, these people who are calling and making these derogatory statements about me, who I choose to support, are denying the fact that, again, who are you to tell me that my personal experience is invalid? I think that that's something that a lot of Democrats need to look within, because how have you tried? Kamala Harris is in office right now and has not tried to do anything about the border, has not tried to not tax people on tips, and has not tried to do anything about our failing education system. So everything that she's promising she can do for you on day one, she could do right now, but she's not trying to. So that's something to, for some Dems to take home.
Robert in Aurora, Indiana, Republican. Good morning.
Yes, sweetheart. Miss Montgomery, I commend you, sweetheart. You are telling the truth. I want to tell you a little bit about that. I'm 87 years old. I went for my physical. I didn't pass, but my dad served World War II. My uncle fought the Battle of Bulge. Back when I was a kid, we had black people working for us. There is colors, black, white, red, you name it, yellow. They ate at our table. They didn't have to go out in a barn or a shed or sit on the porch to eat. They ate with the family. And anybody that wants to do anything for their life, work for it. Work for it. There's jobs out here. They want to put Trump down, and he's worked his. Who would take a shot for this country? Who would take a shot for this country? And he wasn't in the military, no. But he did take a shot for this country, and it almost killed him. And you idiots out there that can't see that this man wants to do right for this country. He loves his country. He loves the people.
All right.
Vote for him.
All right, Robert. Go ahead, Michaela.
I wholeheartedly agree with the sentiment that if you want something, you have to work for it. Again, I moved out to Atlanta 10 years ago with 2 suitcases and $1,500. Not an idea what I was going to do. No family. No, I don't have parents that went to college. I was literally on my own and I had to figure it out. I worked 3 jobs to get through college. Then I got pregnant. So unfortunately, I did not finish. But then I was like, wow, instead of sitting here and waiting on government assistance to come and help me take care of me and my kid, what can I do to therefore uplift us and make it so that I have the freedom to raise my child and not worry about money? And that's, of course, when I invested all of my time into Conserve the Culture and grew it into a business that allowed me to take care of my daughter. So I can't go for the complaints. I can't go for the excuses. I can't go for the woe is me. I wholeheartedly agree that if you want something bad enough, you are going to work your ass off to get it.
Aaron, independent in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I would like to address my comment to Mrs. Montgomery. If she doesn't know how she's in her current station of life based on resources or housing taxes or just her luck of the draw, I agree, you're not very smart. Thanks for taking my call.
Wait, Aaron. What are you talking about? What do you mean?
Exactly. Let's sound smarter when we ask the question, please.
Well, yeah, you made a comment earlier when you were living in Nevada and you moved to Atlanta. I don't know if it was my resources in Nevada because I guess they had pretty good school system.
Actually, we don't. Nevada was ranked very low when it comes to education. It just so happened that our government allocates our dollars better. But go ahead.
But initially you said you didn't know if you were smarter, but if you think resources
in regards to how I feel my level of intelligence is in relation to the people that I've met out here.
Yeah, Michaela, let him finish. Go ahead, Aaron.
I'm sorry for talking while you're interrupting. Well, you go ahead. Carry on.
I think I understand what you're getting. You heard my sentiments earlier in which I said I moved out here, and I don't want to say that I feel like I'm smarter than anybody else, but was it the resources that were allocated to me? Was it the fact that I got lucky with amazing teachers? Nevada ranks very low on education. So let's not act like, oh, all of a sudden I'm not smart. No, I noticed that even with Nevada being ranked so low in education, I felt like the quality of education that I received was much better than the ones that kids are receiving out here.
Out the property taxes.
Okay, property taxes. So are you telling me that with all the black wealth that exists here in Atlanta, with all the black millionaires that live here in Atlanta, why in the world do 92% of APS students are illiterate? Make it make sense. And we have Democratic mayors, we have Democratic city council members, we have Democratic commissioners, and for whatever reason, 92% of the kids here cannot read. That statistic did not exist in Nevada. So again, I don't know if it was the fact that I got lucky. I can't say that, oh my God, it's the teachers that suck out here. I would never demean our educators here in Atlanta. But what we can acknowledge is the numbers, sir. And so while you want to call me not smart, please tell me what your side has done to fix the illiteracy rate that we see in our black children. Absolutely nothing. And in fact, not only have they not done anything to address the illiteracy issue, but then they're further confusing your kids by telling them that men can give birth, by telling them that there's 53 genders, and that by telling them that your love for your best friend must mean that you are gay, you are a pansexual, asexual. Kids under the age of anything high school should not be thinking anything sexual, period. Sexual should not even be in their vocabulary. So for you to say that I'm not smart because I'm willing to call out all of the degeneracy that exists within our current education system only points to your lack of intelligence and your lack of initiative to actually do something in regards to saving our children and saving our schools.
All right, let's talk to Sam in Rome, Georgia, Democrat. Hi, Sam.
Hi, good morning. And I have a question I want to ask her first. And then if you will indulge me, I do have a comment I'd like to make after I hear her answer to my question.
Sure, go ahead.
Before we get into it, too, remember she did all that complaining about the lack of education, but we also have a Republican governor here who had a hand in that as well. So it goes both ways. Anyway, I want to ask her, she touts herself as a smart person, so let's test it. What is the mitigating factor that made the Democratic South turn over to the Republican Party? And I'm
What
waiting
made
for
the
your answer.
Democratic South turn over to the Republican Party?
What is the mitigating?
I don't know what answer you're looking for, and I wouldn't know how to answer that. But I can say, again, I only speak to my personal experiences, sir. So for people to question my intelligence as if my life is somehow invalid is very interesting to me.
So, Sam, go ahead with your point.
Yes,
I
please.
believe you're talking about the Civil Rights Act.
The answer to the question is the Civil Rights Act.
The same Civil Rights Act that was authored by Republicans? Okay.
Can I finish, please?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The act that gave you the right to sit in the chair that you're sitting in right now and vote. People in the city that you just moved into 10 years ago died for that cause. There are people still fighting for that same cause as we speak. In America, they were in the southern part of this state to which I live and I love. They caught people trying to fake the electors in this state in the Republican Party.
We also caught illegals with IDs and trying to vote, but I guess we wouldn't acknowledge that.
If you will look at the history to which I'm sure you claim to know or you do know, the history of your state, you should be aware that people have died for the cause to vote. And now the people that
also died for the cause for us to read.
Hold on, Kayla. Let him finish.
May I finish, if it's okay? Your mother should have taught you a little better than to interrupt.
All right, Sam, just go ahead and finish your point.
Thank you.
Okay. But the people that have died for this cause are still fighting for the same cause. Now, it's okay if you want to be Republican or Democrat, but not these Republicans. They are of a different ilk. They're of a different structure. They are the same structure that left the Democratic Party to come to the now Republican Party. And that's my comment.
All right,
Thank
Sam.
you.
Go ahead, Kayla.
All right, so let's start with the 1964 Civil Rights Act, or the Voting Rights Act, correct? That was all a ploy by Lyndon B. Johnson to get black people to support the Democratic Party for the next 200 years. And unfortunately, the tactic worked because, much like you heard our caller say, they're still fighting for the right to vote. There's not one American citizen without a felony who does not have the right to vote. All you need is an ID, and you can go vote. He also didn't acknowledge the fact that while he's saying we had fake electors, we also had fake citizens going to vote in our election. So, of course, I guess we just won't talk about election integrity in that sense. Next, the ploy to get black people to vote for them for the next 200 years was a fear tactic because, again, black people then thought that if they did not vote Democrat, they would lose their right to vote. And even though Ronald Reagan came in and didn't take away black people's right to vote, for whatever reason, Democrats every election season get up and talk voter suppression, protect your right to vote. Black people died for the right to vote. Black people also died for the right to read. So I wish a lot of you would please go read the Willie Lynch letters. I wish a lot of you would go read more about Jim Crow and how, the systems were set up to basically make us believe that we were victims for the rest of our life. So now let's talk about the migrant issue and how it relates to the 1964 Voting Rights Act, correct? The Voting Rights Act was put in place so that black people would be a loyal Democratic voting base. Black people are now leaving the Democratic Party.
Wait. Kayla, you're saying that the only reason the Civil Rights Act was passed was for votes?
No. The major portion of said legislation was the fact that it gave black people the right to vote, right? And Democrats touted the fact that they gave black people the right to vote. They then used fear-mongering to make black people believe that if they did not vote Democrat, they would lose their right to vote and whatever other rights and resources that were granted to them by these Democrats, correct? Now that you see black people leaving the Democratic Party, now that you see black people calling out the Democratic Party, now that you see black people tired of living in the same conditions that they were in when the bill was signed, they no longer have that loyal voting base. So you know what they're doing now? Now they're opening the borders. They're letting these migrants in. They're giving them these welcome packages full of food stamps, housing assistance, whatever else, housing and clothing and whatever else it is maybe that they need in order to come over here and live comfortably. Why? Because now when you have these illegal migrants coming over here and it's clear that the Republicans are like, no, get them out. Now you have a new loyal voting base who's like, oh God, if we don't vote for the Democrats, we're not only going to lose our right to vote, but we're possibly going to lose our citizenship as well. It's never been a thing where we're going to do this for the betterment of the black community or the Latino community. It's always been we're going to do this so that we can stay in power and we're going to manipulate the masses into believing that we are for them. And even though they will continue to vote for us, we will never do anything for them, but we will play on their feelings for stuff that we did 60 years ago.
Okay, and Dave in Kemmerer, Wyoming, Republican. Hi, Dave.
Oh, yeah.
Go.
My question is, I just want to tell her she's doing a fine job on air. Tell us how what's going on in this world, and I agree with her wholeheartedly. And I appreciate her as a young woman and her knowledge of everything she does. It's just wonderful to hear somebody with all of her zeal and her knowledge, and I thank her for that.
All right, Dave.
Thank you.
Let's go to Jill in Maryland, Democrat. Good morning, Jill.
Yes. First, I'd like to know why she feels she has to smirk, neck roll, eye roll, and insult everybody that calls her, speaking over them. First of all, she is not that knowledgeable. She has not had experiences that other people have not had and not come out bitter and turning on people who helped her. She's like the proverbial crab in a barrel who pulls down any crab above her.
Well,
that's
Jill,
moving on.
do you have a specific question for Kayla?
Yes, did she set up the Chick-fil-A Trump event?
Is that the question? The answer to the
Yes.
question is no. I actually just got invited to meet President Trump at a restaurant, and I found out the next morning that it was Chick-fil-A, and nobody that wanted to meet him was offended by the fact that it was a Chick-fil-A, and neither was I. But to go back to the, I don't know why she smirked, why she neck rolls, while she talks over people, it's okay for you guys to get on here and call me an Uncle Tom, to call me not smart, to call me dumb, to say I haven't done my research, to say I haven't lived a life like you. But then if I smirk, if I laugh, oh my God, what is this person talking about? Now all of a sudden you're offended. I think that's very interesting. Next, to say that I'm a crab in a barrel and I'm pulling people down. Actually, how could I be pulling people down if I was in the bottom of the barrel with the rest of you crabs and I decided to crawl out? And now here I am calling out the discrepancies that I've seen in the Democratic Party and asking you, why is the hood still the hood? The hood was the hood when you were a child. The hood is still the hood now that I have a child. That's 3 generations in which the Democrats have done nothing to help you. So it sounds more like you're the crab at the bottom of the barrel trying to keep everybody down there, and I'm the crab that crawled out, and I'm saying, hey, let's get back to the beach.
Kayla, we've got a text for you from Chas in Jacksonville, Florida. It says, Ms. Montgomery, you mentioned supporting ending the tax on tips.
I didn't. I wholeheartedly support.
Yes.
Ending tax on tips. Yes.
Yes. And then the question is, tell me what will replace the $38 billion that would reported that helps to run the country. So how would you replace that income?
Well, we would put it more on restaurant owners to actually pay their workers a living wage if we're not going to take tax off tips. And then that money would be recouped from payroll taxes, business taxes, sale taxes, things like that. To act like the money can't be recouped from literally any other, compound is pretty interesting to me. I don't think that taxing the tips of workers who are already underpaid and therefore have to go out of their way to earn a tip from the customer should then have to pay money on that tip.
So would you support a raise in the federal minimum wage?
I think that the federal minimum wage should reflect the cost of living, but I can't say that we need to change the minimum wage until we get the economy stabilized, because minimum wage might be sufficient if inflation wasn't so high. So until we get inflation under control, I don't think we can talk about wages, because if we raise the minimum wage right now, that would only make the current situation in the economy worse. There's so many things outside of raising the minimum wage that we would have to address before we could go do something that big.
Stella, a Republican in San Diego, good morning.
Good morning. I'm grateful for the chance to say, MICHAELAH Montgomery, you are speaking the truth. Keep speaking the truth, because people are afraid to speak it, and you're absolutely 100% correct about the things you're saying. It is so totally and completely unfair in this country. The immigration crisis, the crime, it's absolutely out of control. We can't buy groceries. People are struggling. The fact of the matter is, Kamala Harris is not coming out on television and talking about policies. She's going to hide behind the camera on a teleprompter. She's not going to speak the truth. You're speaking the truth. Keep doing what you're doing. Thank you for your work.
Thank you. Thank you.
Philip in Jackson, Mississippi, Independent Line. Hi, Philip.
Hi there, Mimi. Young lady, all I can really understand what you're just explaining to the folks that listen to the program today is that you believe that pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps is the way to go, and that if you just do that, everything else will work all right.
Those words didn't come out my mouth. I said if you want something bad enough, you'd work hard for it.
That's the perception I received by listening.
The reality is what I said, but go ahead.
Wait, hold on, Philip. Michaela, just clarify what you said.
I said that if you want something bad enough, you will work towards it. That does not mean that you will not receive outside help. That does not mean that somebody won't come along and give you a hand up, not a hand out. That does not mean that you have to do it completely on your own. But the fact of the matter is you will dedicate your time, you will dedicate your resources, you will dedicate your life to creating a better situation for yourself.
Okay, Philip, go ahead with your comment.
Okay. Now, what I wanted to really ask her was, who or how many people can she name that she sees as leaders in the black community that she believes in? And my final question would be, and does she listen or take into account some of the teachings of the Honorable Louis Farrakhan and Malcolm X in terms of self-improvement in the black community?
What was the first part of the question? I know the second part about Malcolm X and Louis Farrakhan. What was the first part?
Well, let's take it from right there because.
So Malcolm X is actually one of the greatest people I think ever to touch this planet. I actually have By Any Means Necessary tattooed on my back. And that speaks to the whole, if you want something bad enough, you're going to get it by any means necessary. Additionally, to question my support for the conservative party as if Malcolm X wasn't a conservative himself is quite interesting. Malcolm X preached that blue-eyed white liberals were the black community's biggest enemy. And yet here you guys are touting blue-eyed white liberals or people who are, a black woman who's the face, but of course, will be controlled by blue-eyed white liberals. It's very interesting to me that the Malcolm X enthusiasts or even the Martin Luther King enthusiasts would act like our leaders were not preaching these things to us 60, 70 years ago. Additionally, the first part of the question was, can I identify any black leaders that we have currently in the community? Unfortunately, all of our leaders have been assassinated. Anybody who was going to get us to go against the grain, go against the status quo, to question our current economy, to question our current living situations, to question the conditions in which black people live. Anybody who put up a fight against that was assassinated. So to say that we have a black leader, unfortunately, we don't. We do have black voices that are trying to shine a light on all the things wrong in the black community. But as you guys have seen through this programming today, those black people are attacked. We're called Uncle Toms. We're called Sambos. We're called dumb. We're called, you haven't lived my life. It's very, very interesting because y'all would never talk about Malcolm X or Martin Luther King that way. But for whatever reason, we're going to forget their teachings. We're going to forget what they preached. And we're just going to remember what we feel, which is we should be Democrats. And if you're black, that's what you align yourself with. And even though Malcolm X and Martin Luther King both told us not to do that, here we are.
Okay, MICHAELAH Montgomery, America First Georgia Coordinator for Fulton County. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you guys for having me.
And thanks for watching. That's it for today's Washington Journal. We'll see you again tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. Eastern.
Today on C-SPAN, our campaign 2024 coverage includes Ohio Senator and 2024